Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock it team.
All right, episode 24 is brought to you by CMBT. Go to cmbt.com.au for all your protein powder, protein bars, pre-workout, all that good stuff. You know, we all love CMBT. They're big supporters of Aussie MMA, so make sure you support them as well, cmbt.com.au. We're also brought to you by Nutcare. Bare Nuts hair removal cream is just a part of the range from the guys at Nutcare. So, check them out, and the reviews speak for themselves. So go to nutcare.com.au, use the promo code FIGHTNEWS for 10% off at the checkout. That's nutcare.com.au, promo code FIGHTNEWS. Welcome everyone, I'm Dan Meehan from Fight News Australia, and of course my co-host has put away the whiskey this week because it's now been announced that he's fighting Jack Jenkins for the Eternal Featherweight title on the Gold Coast on September 17th. I speak of course of Lockjaw Justin Van Heerden. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. So we're back in camp, champ camp, fourth fight inside 7 months, so we've been busy, we've been doing the work. Yeah, I'm excited. This fight's been obviously, it's been a long time coming. We were scheduled to fight. Obviously, COVID put the brakes on it, but now we're finally doing it, and it's made for an even bigger fight. It's kind of built up. He's gone on to defend his belt a couple of times. I've obviously been on a tear, especially this year. So it's kind of just hyped it up even more, and it's one of those rare times where it's like the two best people getting in there and fighting, so it's going to be fucking sick.
Absolutely, and it's just, obviously the rivalry was really simmering away nicely last time you guys were booked to fight each other, and, this time around, like you say, it's just even spicier because, obviously Jack was on the UFC's doorstep. He's made some more title defences, and, obviously you've got some runs on the board this year as well with 3 big wins, so, it's shaping up as a nice one.
Yeah, it's going to, honestly, like people are kind of, when I shared the poster and stuff like that for it, this is easily going to be the biggest fight in Australian MMA history, like without a doubt. It's going to cap off a 10-year anniversary double card sort of weekend that Eternal's putting together. It's going to, we're fighting on the Saturday night. We're in the main event. We're finishing off like a massive weekend. So all eyes, everything's going to be like, it's going to be packed. Everyone's going to be raring, to sort of watch some quality sort of high level MMA, and I have no doubt we're going to get there get out there and do that. And like you sort of said, he's putting everything on the line. The guy's like in a pretty good spot. I wouldn't have blamed the dude if he didn't chose not to fight or chose to wait it out a little bit and see what happened with Contender Series or with another opportunity. So for that, he has all my respect. He's putting everything on the line, but unfortunately, you're standing across from me and I got 25 minutes to work with. So, you've seen what I can do with 5 minutes. You've seen what I can do with 10 minutes. You've seen what I can do with 15. Those extra 2 rounds, it's only going to benefit me, and I'm taking that belt.
Absolutely, and we know you're a guy who, not a guy to shy away from a challenge. You always sort of tend to take on the boogeyman of the division that no one wants to fight, and Jack Jenkins is probably the biggest challenge out there for you, as from where I sit anyway. So, does that sort of, I don't know, does that sort of excite you a bit more than sort of perhaps fighting, Alan Philpott or whoever else would have been sort of kicking around, or is that more exciting for you, sort of taking on a bigger challenge like that with all the chocolates on the line?
100%. This is like the kind of shit that if you don't already have them, you should already have the motivation to get up in the morning and get out there and get stuck in because you're in camp. But if you don't, or whatever reason, you need that little extra push. This is the kind of shit you want, high stakes fight. And I said that with the last one, it's high stakes, high reward, everything's sort of on the line here. And, he's a tough opponent, man. He's a good dude. He's a quality fighter, and he's tough, he's strong, he's fast. It's good fight IQ, it's going to be a hell of a fight. Like it's the same, this fight, as like you said, as compared to if I were to fight someone like Alan Philpott again, or Diego or something like that, it's just to be honest, man, like especially like for, if I say I had to fight like Allen again, the fight doesn't leave the first round if I fight Allen again. And that's not a cockiness. That's not a knock on him or his abilities. Like it's just, I've felt you in there now. I know what to feel. I know what to expect. I know everything that you have now. So if I was to fight you again, and especially with the coaches that I have and the team that I have, I'll put you away inside one. And Diego, it's much the same. Like, as I said, going into this, he had his opportunity to fight me and chose to knock it back, chose to knock back Muhammad. Now he's fighting Allen, and it's kind of just irrelevant. And Diego, really, let's be honest, hasn't evolved these last few years. And that's just like, it's just stayed the same. Like, I could literally pretty much take his fights from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you look at his fights now and it's the exact same. Like, the guy hasn't evolved, hasn't changed that much, so it's, easily way more exciting to be fighting someone like Jack, someone that's gonna bring it and be fucking, ready to go out there and look to put me away, and I'm gonna look to do the same. And that's pretty much what's gonna happen. It's gonna be one of us is putting the other one away inside 25 minutes. There's no other way this fight goes.
Absolutely, and a chance to potentially snatch that UFC spot, or the spot in the big leagues that we were sort of led to believe that Jack Jenkins might have had one hand on, but it's all on the line.
I'll say that too, man. As much as like we're scheduled to fight, we're locked in. Who knows what can happen, man. A couple of weeks from now, if they turn around and come at me and say, "Hey, man, you're gonna have to have a different opponent. Jack's out. He's off to the races or whatever." Am I going to be surprised? Not really, because like I sort of said and have been saying, and especially since that he's racked up the 2 title defenses and stuff like that. In my eyes, the guy's earned his opportunity and earned his spot. Him choosing to, like I said, step back and take this other fight, take this fight with me. He's a smart dude, man. He's got his head screwed on right. Like, he knows that this is a massive fight for him, even though he is putting everything on the line. It's a big fight, like big hype, big opportunity to sort of earn some decent coin, get a lot of hype, build to your thing. It's kind of a win-win situation, but with that extra bit of risk that you're sort of putting everything on the line.
Absolutely. Do you reckon there's a chance that the call might still come for from the big leagues for him in the interim? Like we saw that happen with Shannon Ross. I think he had a title fight booked in for Eternal, and then he obviously got the got the call up, so sort of put it to the side. Do you think that have you got any sort of inside information? I don't know if we can even talk about this on on the air, but have you got any sort of information that might still be on the cards? Or
man, as far as I know, like that but I don't see why not. Like, it's a weird spot for me to be in, because obviously, like, the fight's been announced, I'm like locked in, and that's my focus and sort of what I'm looking towards. But so there's a weird spot to be in, because I don't want to. I can sit here and be selfish, like for my own selfish reasons, and be like, oh well, I hope it doesn't happen, so I get to fight the dude and kind of get after it there and fight him for a title. But like at the same time, like, am I going to be upset if that happens? Fucking of course not. I'm going to be stoked for the guy. I'm going to be like, and then I'm going to be like, cool. Well, he earned his opportunity. He got his opportunity, and then, he's off to the races, and we got another Aussie representing, in the UFC or whatever it might be. So it's a weird spot to be in, because it's like, it's a win-win for me no matter what. Because it's like it's kind of like if it doesn't happen, I get to fight him. I'm fighting the other best dude in the country, and I'm fighting him for the belt. If it does happen, it's another Aussie in the UFC, rising tide, ships are all going the same direction. It adds up, it benefits everyone. Is him, let's call it like it is him getting signed and getting a Contender Series call up, or just straight up a UFC contract or whatever, is that more beneficial for me? 100%, because then what's the options for me if I don't fight Jack? I'm probably going to end up fighting the winner of Philpott and Diego, or potentially, Rod Costa goes out there and handles business August 20th, decides that he wants to fight at featherweight again. No, could be fighting Rod Costa. Could be, Alavi could decide to fight, get a win, and could be fighting Alavi. I don't know. They could make the winner of Diego and Philpott fight Alavi, and then I fight the winner of that fight. If that's how it played out, that Jack was, still off to the opportunity still came up for him to sort of go to Contender Series or whatever. So it's a weird spot to be in, but certainly me fighting him is the biggest challenge that's on the horizon and kind of the biggest hype fight. Everything about this is going to be absolutely massive. And, he's a competitor. I'm a competitor. I think I've shown this year, especially, doesn't matter where the fight goes and what's sort of happening. If the opportunity's there for me to go out and perform and, look for a finish or find the finish, I'm going to do that. And, he's shown how dangerous he is. So it's exciting for sure.
Absolutely. And I guess regardless of what happens, you're in pole position, so you're going to be fighting for a belt one way or another. So it's a good spot to be in. But we've got plenty of fights to talk about. We'll obviously cover this in depth when when the time comes and whatever episode we're up to, 30 odd maybe by then. But obviously we had UFC 277 on the weekend. We had some Anzacs in action, but one Anzac that wasn't actually in action on the weekend, and we spoke about this last week, was Justin Tafa.
Yep.
I thought we'd better just clarify this one because we kind of speculated that it might have been a visa issue or something that sort of scuppered his fight on the card, but turns out it was actually a health issue. It's Yeah, so we don't know the nature of it, but it sort of came out on social media. I think sort of shortly after we recorded. So we thought we'd just clarify that and sort of wish Justin Tafa all the best in recovering from whatever the issue is there.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, that, like you said, that sort of came out just after we recorded, and from what I've gathered, it seems like he's going to be out for the rest of the year. So obviously, we want to see him get on the mend and get back in there because. He's an exciting dude to watch fight. I like watching him get out there and perform. He throws the heavies, just gets after it. Either, goes to put someone out or get put out. So it's always sick when people are doing that sort of approach to the fight game. So we want to see Justin Tafa come back and, get back in there and keep punching people's faces off.
Absolutely. Hopefully he's back in there sooner rather than later. But the guys that were in action on the weekend was obviously Blood Diamond was the first cab off the rank against Orion Kosi, and fortunately he's gone down by unanimous decision, 29-28 on all three cards. And Orion Kosi did miss weight. He weighed 172.5, which is it's obviously a bit of a dampener on a win like that. But this time around, I guess Blood Diamond, he got to show out his striking a little bit. He obviously dropped Kosi with or at least he rocked Kosi with a spinning back fist in round two. But ultimately he sort of seemed to give up the takedowns a little bit too easily. Sort of as the fight went on. So how did you view Blood Diamond's performance?
Hard to sort of see him go down again. It's just, it's weird. It's a weird one because watching it, it seemed like he had all the opportunity to put Orion away and kind of, shut him out and finish the fight. And there was multiple times where it seemed like where he kept engaging in the clinching, and kind of pressed a bit too hard when he sort of had him hurt, and decided to just grab him and clinch up with him and throw a couple of knees and you saw Eugene. I don't know if you sort of saw, but you could see Eugene yelling and screaming, and you could hear him he was going off, he was disengaged, get away, he was, so. I don't know, man. Can we, because you've had your first fight in the UFC already. You've made your debut. You've dealt with the jitters. You've had all that, and even someone like him who's had that many kickboxing fights, he's fought in front of big crowds and that before, and stuff like that. So this time around, it seemed like he was a lot more comfortable walking out. It seemed like he was a lot more comfortable when they were patting him down, doing the VAS, the whole process when he was in the cage and they were announcing him and all that sort of shit. So I don't know, man. I wanna just be find some of the positives to take out. He got to see some of his striking, and he's shown what he can do. He showed a little bit of what he can do on the feet. I seen one comment that someone made, and they were like, "Here's the human embodiment of what Jello is, like the way he moves, and it's what he
It
does."
is.
And that's pretty spot on. Like, you know, if you saw, like, every time he threw something, he would just whip something else behind it. Like if he threw the left hook, that left high kick was following along with it just almost automatically. And, you know, he hit that a couple of times and sort of cracked Olmec behind the ear a little bit. So
From such close quarters as well. It's such a
he
weird kick that he
he
throws.
throws, yeah, like you could be like this close to him and he'll kick you in the head somehow. I don't know. It's real weird. But overall, yeah, just I don't know, man. Like he's an experienced martial artist, and he's had a few, like, so he had a bunch of stand-up fights, and he was like 3-1 in MMA going into this fight. And then, you know, it's just, but it just seemed like a lack of fight IQ was sort of just not there, you know, in this one, kind of like willingly engaging in the clinching when he didn't need to, not disengaging when he had the opportunity to, and then allowing, you know, Orion to come back into the fight and kind of do his thing. You know, it's just, yeah, it's just a kind of like a disappointing result, especially when he did have brief moments where he was showcasing his ability and what he can do. You know, in a perfect world, you put that dude in the cage with any welterweight, and if it's like a stand-up fight, man, he fucks some people up. Like, I'll tell you that now. There's not many people that can strike with that dude. But yeah. So overall, pretty disappointing. But you know, let's hope he gets another opportunity to go out there and perform. Obviously, we know the UFC, especially lately, they've been pretty harsh with shit like this. You know, they've been cutting people that have been on win streaks. So you know, it seems like, you know, they've got all the talent available to them now, and especially with contender series, all that sort of stuff. So I hope Bloods gets another opportunity to go out there and perform, and I want to see him kind of just, you know, realize his potential and showcase his ability and go out there and put on an exciting performance, get a win, and kind of cement himself as someone who deserves to sort of still be in the big show. But yeah, we'll just see what they do. We'll see what they offer him.
Yeah, do you think he does get another opportunity? Like I think he's 34 years old, maybe Bloods, and he's, you know, obviously 3-2, overall 0-2 in the UFC. You know, I guess in that second round against Kosi, we saw a bit of a glimmer of what he can do. Is that enough for the UFC to offer him an opportunity, or do you think they look at a guy who's sort of young in his career like that, at 34 years old and 0-2 in the UFC, and think, well, maybe we'll bring some new blood in? Pardon the pun.
Yeah, he's obviously. Do I want to see him get another opportunity? 100%. You know, I like the dude. He's, I guess, in a roundabout way, a sort of teammate now of mine. So, you know, do I want to see him get another opportunity? 100%. Do I, you know, I want to see him get in there and fight again and put on a crazy fight. Do I think he's going to get another opportunity? I'm not confident, because the UFC, like I said, they've been culling their roster, you know, getting rid of people who've been on win streaks and stuff like that. So, and they just, because they even now more than ever, they've got the opportunity to do that, because they can just scrape together some talent that they've got coming through contender series or another avenue, and kind of do that. So yeah, you know, it's going to be hard pressed for us to see him back in there, but hopefully that happens. But you know, he's got the benefit of, you know, that he has competed so much in kickboxing that he'll be able to find another opportunity to compete and just go compete in kickboxing. I'm sure he could, you know, end up in one championship or somewhere else like that and back in glory, but, you know, somewhere doing something, fighting kickboxing, doing the thing that he's been doing for so long anyway, and still sort of making decent coin and getting in there, and you still living that fight life. So is it the sort of be all end all if he doesn't get another opportunity? No. But do we want to see him get another opportunity? 100%. We want to see him sort of bounce back.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you kind of touched on there, it's probably not a great time of year with, you know, when the contender series season is just sort of kicking off. It's not a great time of year to be on a bit of a losing streak. So yeah, it's been interesting to see what the UFC does. But yeah, hopefully blood time. Do you think he'll stick with MMA? Just before we sort of move off this one, do you think he'll kind of you know, stick with MMA, or do you think he'll kind of just go wherever the offer comes if the UFC does cut him?
I think if the UFC does cut him, I'd like to see him stick with it, but, you know, will he? Well, you know, more signs point to probably not, because, you know, he might get an offer from someone like one championship, and, you know, then he could be in there fighting. Let's be honest, he could be in there fighting, some people who aren't going to be on his level and getting paid decent amount of money to do it, and fighting in front of those 37 billion people that they have watching their show. It's a win-win. So potentially, do I think we're going to see him go to somewhere like bare knuckle boxing or anything like that? No, of course not. But yeah, who knows? Maybe with his management and how they do it, they might be able to get him an opportunity somewhere else in another bigger sort of promotion, and he can continue his MMA sort of journey. But yeah, it's just going to depend on. It's going to come down to sort of what he decides. He might decide. Even now, he might decide, "No, fuck it," and just go. Decide I'm sort of done with this MMA thing. I want to go back to kickboxing or whatever, and just do that. Who knows? I mean, but he's got options. He's certainly got options, and he's a smart dude, man. He's pretty across the whole sort of situation. So I'm sure he'll figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. I guess again, I don't want to bang on about his age too much, but at 34 years old, you're probably at a point where you sort of got to make hay while the sun shines. Don't you? Got to go
100%.
where you're going to sort of make the most money, because it's probably the time to sort of cash out your career. So yeah, we'll see what happens for Blood Diamond. But also his teammate Kai Kara France was in action. It wasn't a great night for City Kickboxing in the end. He's gone down by a round 3 TKO there with a body kick and punches to Brandon Moreno. So obviously he was fighting for the interim UFC flyweight title there, and it was a fun fight while it lasted. I felt like Kai, for my money anyway, Kai was sort of warming nicely into the fight in that third round. It was probably the best round that he'd had before the stoppage. So, obviously the kick from Brandon Moreno, it landed right on that liver, and it's a pretty miserable place to get hit, and that was all she wrote. So yeah, what did you make of Kai's performance?
Yeah, it was obviously this fight was always going to be a banger. Yeah, unfortunate result. Obviously, we want to see Kai go out there and win an interim title, and then obviously go on to unify it. But the fight for as long as it lasted was hectic. It was kind of living up to the hype that we expected it was going to. And I think I saw something like on the scorecards had he got through to the end of the third round, going into the fourth, I think they had it as round one to Marino, round 2 as a draw, and round 3 to Kai. So it was shaping up to be some intense championship rounds if had the fight continued. But obviously, we saw Marino listen to his experienced corner and James Krause, which is a good addition for him. And then, he blasted and finished his combination with that liver kick that we saw, with that left sort of body kick to the liver, landed in that sweet spot. And I even afterwards I was messaging Joe about it, because I was kind of because he's always sort of talking to us about the way you can throw that kick to sort of land it with the toes hitting on the liver like that, because you're not throwing it up straight up like a front kick, and you're not throwing it around like a conventional sort of roundhouse kick like you would see a lot of sort of Thai based fighters doing that. It sort of comes up on that angle, kind of like how Giga throws it, and then the toes are just slapping across the liver, just kind of hitting that sweet spot just right under the floating rib. And Marino nailed that perfectly. And obviously, if you're watching it and you saw Kai, he just kind of folded. And anyone that hasn't been kicked in the liver, let me tell you, that's like the reset button for the human body. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how tough you are. If you get hit in the liver and it's in that sweet spot, that's it. It's a wrap. And even after, I don't know if people have seen the photos that have come out of the welts and the marks on Kai's body after he got kicked. The shit was pretty rough. But he seems like he's got his wits about him, his mindset's in the right place. He knows he's one of the best flyweights in the world still. So yeah, he's going to get straight back to work and look to sort of build himself up and get back to sort of this lofty position that he was in. But he started showing. In that third round, like you said, he started showing glimpses of his ability and how much he's progressed, and what he's able to sort of do, and had Marino in some serious trouble in that third round. Started really messing him up, started opening him up, started just putting the hurt on him. So there's plenty of positives to take out. Disappointing result, pretty shit night for City Kickboxing, but do I think Kai's gonna be able to bounce back and knock off some top contenders and get himself back to a title shot? 100%. Is he going to learn from this? 100%. But even then, people say you sort of learn from your fights and stuff like that. Is there anything that he needs to learn from really and from that performance? Not really. He got kicked in the liver. Like that can happen regardless. That can keep happening. Like you can't really prepare yourself to get hit in the liver and continue. Like it's just one of those things. Like can he be more defensively aware? Was he going? He was going straight back in like a straight line going backwards. Could he have angled off? 100%. But we can sit here and nitpick that all day. Is that something that he needs to sit down and go over a million times over in his head? No, he knows that. 100% he knows that, and his team knows that. So I feel like he's going to go train, make the adjustments, come back, knock a couple of dudes out, get himself back to a title shot, and we're going to be, definitely seeing him go for a belt again.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly in the mix. He's had a good performance, for the interim title, so he doesn't sort of fall off the face of the earth there. It sounds like they're going to do Fig versus Moreno number 4.
Yeah.
I think Moreno put December on the table. Fig doesn't really speak English, so that there was kind of a bit of an awkward little sort of face off in the cage afterwards. I don't know. I found that a bit hard to watch actually.
That shit was awkward. That was like
indoors is annoying to me anyway, but.
Terrible. That was like a knockoff WWE moment. That was stupid.
Yeah, and Dana White actually said afterwards that he kind of regrets letting Fig into the cage because the whole thing was kind of a bit goofy. So, but anyway, it looks like that's good. That's possibly going to be the fight sort of later in the year. We saw Alejandro Pantoja earlier on in the card. Absolutely blasted. Was it Perez? It was Perez.
Yeah.
I think was the opponent. He was a man on a mission. Like he's been sort of waiting on the sidelines for a title shot, which hasn't eventuated. So he's obviously gone in there, taken a fight in the interim against Perez, it was his first fight after fighting for the title himself, and he's gone in there and just run him over. So would that be a matchup for Kai? Do you think maybe that would be sort of the number one contender sort of fight for the winner of Fig versus Moreno, number 76?
Yeah, it's if Pantoja's like if he's not going to take the Rodriguez approach and go fuck it, I'm going to sit out and wait for the champ to be ready to fight whoever the champ is. If he's going to say no, okay, well I want to stay busy and get another fight in, that's 100% a fight you can make. You go Kai and Pantoja, and the winner fights the winner of Moreno and Figgy. Does it make sense for Pantoja to do that and sort of put his position on the line? Not really. Is he a guy that strikes me as someone who would do that? 100%. Like I think he's past the point of worrying about shit like that because he's been on the door of a title shot for a while now. So and he's a dangerous dude. It wouldn't be just a walk in the park matchup for Kai either. It'd be some serious fucking danger that you have to worry about in that fight. But yeah, I could see them doing that. It's one of those sort of things where how the division sort of sits at the moment and plays out, that's 100% what you could do. I could see them throwing that together. It's not like Henry Cejudo's going to fucking drop down to flyweight and fight anytime soon. That fat cunt's not fighting a bantamweight hardly. So we don't know what's going on. But is that a fight I would want to watch? Yes, I'd pay all the money to watch Kai fight Pantoja. That'd be a sick fight.
Yeah, they might even do Perez instead. I think, like you say, Pantoja's probably likely to want to sit on the sidelines and try and preserve his title shot. He's tried that before, so who knows? But Cejudo. Well, Cejudo for a guy who's insists that he's retired. He does a lot of call outs. Calls out a lot of fighters, and
he's also
doing a whole lot of training in the interim. So who knows what's going on there.
And he's also like 52 years old. Like, we don't know what's going on with Cejudo. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. It's all just more cringe, But surely it's going to eventuate in a fight. Eventually, you would think. But I don't know. Maybe he's just taking the Floyd Mayweather approach and just trying to stay in the headlines. Just keep people hitting his socials. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. We'll find out. But one fighter who certainly isn't sitting on the sidelines is Amanda Nunes. She has reclaimed the UFC Women's Bantamweight title with a fair ass whooping in the end on Juliana Pena. It was a pretty one-sided fight early on. I think Pena went down, I think 4 times maybe in the first couple of rounds, and Nunes just really showed just the gulf in class in terms of stand-up fighting. And after that, she decided she wanted to take Pena down and kind of ground and pound her from there. But Yeah, I think we talked about this on the day as well. Like, I think all props have to go to Juliana Pena. Like, she was in there with just an absolute monster on the night, and there was just no quit. She was just trying to win. Just fighting tooth and nail from start to finish, throwing up those submissions when she was on the bottom, just popping up when she got dropped and getting right back after it. She was, was super impressive, but outclassed in the end, I think. So, yeah, what did you make of the women's bantamweight title fight?
Yeah, it was a wild fight, man. It was a cool fight. I enjoyed watching that, and like you said, I think what added to that fight so much was Pena's willingness to not quit and just keep fighting and just keep coming forward, keep looking for ways to win. And she got close a couple of times with like a couple of submissions that she threw up, like that armbar that she threw up. It was for a second there, it didn't look too good. It was looked like Amanda was gonna have her arm snapped off, but overall, yeah, just an incredibly dominant performance from Amanda. And obviously it's come out now afterwards that she said that that's what she wanted. She didn't want to finish her. She wanted to just sort of beat her down for the 25 minutes and let her know that last time out you got lucky. I wasn't on, and now I am, and here's what you got to deal with. And I could see that, I kind of sort of said that. I felt like in the lead up that's what we were going to sort of see. Amanda was just going to come in and do what she does, and that's exactly what happened. But yeah, Pena's an absolute monster. They're 1-1 now. We're going to see him. We're for sure going to see him run it back again. I think Amanda won her 10th sort of title fight, so I think she's in that upper echelon now. She's getting close to sort of the records of Anderson Silva, GSP, John Jones, so she's she's a monster. She keeps breaking records. I think in that fight she set the record for the most knockdowns in a women's MMA fight and title fight or something like that. So she's just out here performing and doing bits. And yeah, Pena is an absolute savage, and that's what you kind of need. I don't know if you saw, like, McGregor kind of did his comparison between their fight, their sort of two fights with him, and compared it to his two fights with Nate Diaz, and just kind of pointed out the similarities and stuff like that. And for the most part, he was pretty spot on. So are we going to be in for a crazy third fight? I could see it. I could see it being another sort of entertaining fight. Do I think that the result's going to be different to this second fight? Not at all. I feel like Amanda's just going to beat the shit out of her again. I thoroughly believe when she is on point, everything's in the right spot. She's motivated. She's training properly. She's able to spar. She's able to do what she sort of does to prepare herself and come in the best physical shape and mental sort of position. There's no one in the current roster that could beat that lady.
Yeah, she really made a statement this time around, and I think one of the scorecards was even 50-43. So does it warrant an immediate rematch for you, or do you think they park that one for a little bit and come back to it? What do you reckon?
Yeah, to be honest, do I want to see an immediate rematch? No, not really, because it was so dominant. Like, if you get 50-43, it's but we've seen weirder things happen. Like, we saw Masvidal get absolutely dominated and then come in and fight for the belt again. So it's going to depend on what Amanda wants to do. The fight that I want to see is Valentina versus Amanda 3, because there's a lot of hype that you could build around that. Amanda didn't seem too keen on the idea. She doesn't even, from her perspective, she doesn't consider Valentina to even be the champion right now. She thinks that Tyler Santos should be the champion. So, she, considers that Valentina lost her last fight. And, I'm inclined to agree with her. Like, I don't think she won that fight. But, it just depends. That's a pretty big fight to throw together. But, in the interim, it's just going to depend on what they do, and depends on how busy Amanda wants to be and what she wants to do. She, at the moment in featherweight, matchups are pretty scarce and there's not really much they can do there, but they could probably give her a few sort of filler fights, and maybe Juliana could fight someone else, but it's just going to sort of depend. Could Amanda drop down to flyweight potentially? Probably not, but who knows? Is that like an option? If that's something that she could do, then she could kind of 100% cap off that thing that no one's been able to do and win that third title. But yeah, it's just sort of, she's in a position right now, man, where if she just went, fuck it, I'm done. No one could sit there and go, oh, what the fuck? That makes no sense. Like, she could walk away right now and she's always going to, for a very long time, she's going to be the greatest female mixed martial artist that we've ever seen. And like one of the greatest mixed martial artists we've ever seen.
There was actually in the back of my mind post-fight that there might even be a retirement sort of coming. Like, she seemed a bit off in the last fight, and potentially, maybe the interest is waning, or sort of other parts of her life are starting to take over. But I mean, she's, like you say, she could walk away tomorrow, and she would have her legacy would be intact. But with that in mind, you sort of touched on the Valentina fight there. Obviously, that's a super fight that the UFC could really put together, and I'm sure they've had discussions themselves about something like that. I feel like the clock is kind of ticking for a fight like that, though. Like, obviously both Valentina and Amanda are I think they're both 34 years old now. Now, I'm not putting them out to pasture just yet. I know 34 is relatively young in mixed martial arts terms, but it they can run the risk of it sort of ended up being a bit like like Mayweather versus Pacquiao. One of these sort of super fights that kind of happens a little bit too late, when maybe they're sort of at the end of their careers, or sort of their powers have diminished a little bit, and there's always that sort of question mark, that sort of asterisk against
what would have happened.
What would have happened if they were both in their prime? So I feel like that'd be a fun one if if Valentina was willing to sort of step back up to bantamweight. We know she's done it before. She's had some big wins up there in the past. So
she's beaten Pen. I think she's beaten Pena at bantamweight, from memory.
She did. I think she tapped
her. Yeah.
And she also beat Holly Holm. At bantamweight there, and that was a dominating performance as well. That was a beautiful performance. So she can do it, and has done it. So could be that could be the next thing to sort of secure that get that super fight done and secure that legacy.
Finish that fight, and then beat her again, because I think they fought twice before, haven't they? I think they fought twice before, and I think the second time they fought, it was a bit closer. It was a bit of a closer fight. I feel like Valentina thought that she won the fight, from memory. I think that's the fight where she was in the cage afterwards and she was protesting, and she was like pretty upset that she didn't get the result. But that could be for sure the fight to do the third fight. They get after it, bang it out, and that's it. You walk away after that, and you pretty much cement yourself as the best to ever do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we've got some other fights to cover. Of course, we've got also in another large promotion, PFL. We've got Rob Wilkinson's in action this week in his semi-final, light heavyweight semi-final against Delon Monte. For those who don't know, Monte is a 28-year-old Brazilian. He lost to Antonio Carlos Jr. in his first fight in the in the tournament by Das choke. It was only 29 seconds into the first round. He managed to scrape into the finals with a round 1 KO over Emiliano Sordi, who was a bit of an upset in the end. And obviously Rob Wilkinson's coming off a win against Victor Pesta in the first round knockout, and a second round knockout against Brucey Soto. So he's got plenty of momentum, and you'd have to be the favourite going into this one against Delon Monte. What do you reckon?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said last time, Rob's gonna go in there and fucking punch this dude's face off and knock him the fuck out. I feel like, it's gonna be another first round finish. I think he's just too big, too strong. He's firing on all cylinders. The guy seems like he's in the best place he's been in years, mentally as well. He's kind of figured it all out. His body looks great. He seems like he's suited right to the weight class. I feel like Wilkinson's gonna go out there and just put on another crazy performance and book himself a spot moving forward and get closer to that $1 million prize.
Absolutely. You've given us the same prediction for each of Rob Wilkinson's fights so far in this PFL tournament, and I think he might go 3 for 3 here. I think this is a bit of a I think Monte might be a bit overmatched this time. He's he's a guy who's scraped through. He's obviously got some power. He's obviously dangerous, but I think Rob Wilkinson's skills are just far beyond what Delon Monte brings to the table. And the winner, of course, goes on to face the winner of Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Omari Akhmedov. So, there's obviously another dangerous opponent lying in wait in the final.
Yeah, so, I mean, ideally, the easier matchup, I think, after this one for Wilkinson is probably not Akhmedov. I think that's going to be that'll be the hardest sort of fight for him on the horizon. But, I feel like he can just get it done regardless, but for sure he's going to go out and perform this week, and we're going to be talking about, next week we're going to be talking about him putting on another killer performance, getting another massive win, and we're going to be, potentially starting to preview him fighting for $1 million.
Yeah, huge. Absolutely, yeah. Can't wait. Obviously, this weekend or this Friday night, we've got Ep.24 taking place down here in Melbourne. So we'll cover off some fights there because there's some fun ones. There's actually quite a good card this week. We'll kind of start from the bottom. We've got Junior Tafa's back in action. Who knows? This is Melbourne. We've had a horrible track record down here in terms of MMA events actually going ahead. We've had that many cancellations, so hopefully we're only 4 days out as of recording. It'll only be a couple of days out as of the release of this podcast. So hopefully it's still on the cards at this point. But you've got Junior Tafa, who's obviously back in action. He was just in action only a couple of weeks ago and beat down promotions. He won his debut against the Japanese opponent. It was a quick sort of first round KO. So fast turnaround. He's back in action against Kelvin Fitial, who's obviously a sort of an experienced opponent. 38 years old. He's from the Northern Mariana Islands, which is just near Guam. He's been fighting professionally since 2005, but he is on a 4-fight skid. 2 knockouts and a submission in those 4, and he was last seen in Hex in 2019 against Ben Sazzoli. So it seems on paper like it's a sort of an ideal sort of matchup for Junior Tafa, but how do you view this one?
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say I asked to fight Junior Tafa for the vacant Eternal Light Heavyweight title, and he's decided to duck me, and now I've been forced to fight Jack instead, and he's fighting on Hex. Am I disappointed? Yes. Well, these things happen, but nah.
Not mad, just disappointed.
Yep, just disappointed. But no, I feel like he's going to go out there and, get another crazy first-round knockout. That dude can bang, man. He's got some power. He's got some, obviously, experience in the striking side of things. Trains at NTG with some absolute killers. So, and I think for this camp or most of this sort of time now recently, he's been training in Thailand and stuff like that as well. So, obviously, I'm expecting him to just go out there and put on a show on Hex, get another dominant first round finish, and we're gonna see him sort of progress forward and start gaining some more momentum after this.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be a fun one. Obviously, we've got a couple of bangers there, so they're always fun when the big boys punch on. But also another sort of fun matchup is Jabbar Askarov is back in the MMA cage. He's 4-0 in MMA. We obviously know him. For his Muay Thai and kickboxing career. He's had 146 fights, I think, in 148 fights in kickboxing and Muay Thai. Obviously, he was on the Contender Asia back in 2007 or 2008. He's fought John Wayne Parr. He's been there and done that. But it's his first MMA fight since 2015. He has sort of... he has had 4 fights in the past in MMA. Most of his fights, I think, have been sort of matched favourably for his sort of skill set, against sort of inexperienced MMA fighters with sort of striking backgrounds like him, and this kind of looks to be the same sort of opponent. He's facing Jonathan Tuhu, who's from Papua New Guinea. He's 29 years old. He's experienced in kickboxing. He has a 1-13 record in boxing, but they have fought before under K1 rules in 2019, which Jabbar Askarov won by leg kick TKO. So they have faced off before. Obviously, MMA is a different sport, but they are both sort of from a striking background, so it does shape up to be another banger. So what do you make of this one?
It's basically a caged Muay Thai match, really. It's 2 dudes that are kickboxing experience, and they get their 4-ounce gloves and just punch on. I don't think anyone's going to shoot any takedowns or anything. Jabbar Askarov looks like one of the scariest human beings I've ever seen in my life. I remember seeing him when I fought earlier in the year in Melbourne, and he was in Josh Riley's corner, and I was just at one stage, I just made eye contact with that dude, and I felt like he was staring straight into my soul. Like, if ever there's a person that looks like he's killed people, it's that guy. He's a scary dude. But 2 guys that can just bang it on and punch on. We've seen both guys like shut people's lights out and produce some absolute killer knockouts and sort of finishes. And as you said, both experienced sort of strikers. So 4-ounce gloves changes the sort of game a little bit. They only need to land one and can put each other away. And especially when you got 2 guys like that know how to, throw some punches and kicks and elbows and do it at a sort of exceptionally high level. I'm expecting someone's going to sleep.
Yeah, it certainly shapes that way. On paper, it certainly looks like it's not going to need the full 3 rounds, but it'll be fun while it lasts. So. But also, the main event. That's probably obviously the main attraction of the fight of the card. It's a fun fight on paper. It's JJ Ambrose is taking on Abel Brights for the Hex Super Lightweight title. Which is 165 pounds in the American American system. So Ambrose is now 35 years old. For those who don't know, he's from Guam as well. He's a guy who's just been around forever. He's fought in Cage Warriors, Pancrase, Bellator. He's got 6 fights in the Hex Cage dating back to 2015. He's just coming off a loss to Spike Carlisle, who's obviously a UFC veteran. So he's just lost by round 2 TKO. Won 5 fights in a row before that. Abel Brights, I guess we all know Abel Brights on the local scene. He took on the late replacement Jasper Dunphy at Hex 22 in February, but. Before that, he's a guy who's fought everyone. He's fought Damian Brown, Callan Potter, BJ Bland, Jamie Malarkey, Brad Riddell. He's just the list goes on. So he's got a 13-7 record now. He's got a chance to take on JJ Ambrose, who's probably one of the toughest challengers sort of in that division on the local scene. So what do you make of the main event matchup?
Yeah, JJ Ambrose looks like he could be a fucking powerlifter. That dude is so big. He's so jacked. Yeah, I don't know. He's a massive dude and obviously very experienced. He can strike, he can grapple. He's pretty well rounded. Same with Abel, man. He's very well rounded. He's obviously shown, especially in the grappling side of things, though, when he wants to, he can just snatch something up and put people away as well. So it's shaping up to be an absolute banger of a fight. Do I think it's going to go the distance? Absolutely not. One of these dudes is going to be able to find the finish and put each other away. They're both guys that are very adept at that. How do I see it playing out? Honestly, I'm sort of leaning towards Abel. Obviously, obviously want to see the local based fighters do well, but he's a monster, man, and he's a super nice dude. Comes from a really good gym, works with some really good people. Obviously we fought together earlier in the year. Only 2 fighters on the card that got finishes because it's what we do. But
it didn't take you long to make this about you, did it?
No, I had to sort of just let you know, just remind you a little bit. But I see Abel going out there and performing at an exceptionally high level. And then, finding a finish. I see him getting a submission inside 3 and putting JJ Ambrose away. And then we're going to be sort of, I guess, talking about what's potentially next for him and kind of how it shapes up for him. Because having someone like JJ Ambrose on your record and especially if you can finish him, it's going to just add to it and it's going to be a super beneficial thing for you.
Yeah, do you think Abel Brights is an interesting one for me because he's obviously, like you say, he's a quality fighter. He's well-rounded. He's fought everyone here in Australia. Do you think he's a chance of sort of making it to the next level? He's obviously been around a long time. I don't know how old he is actually, but do you think 13-7 record, a win would put him at 14-7? Do you think there's opportunities in the big leagues for him, or do you think he's kind of like one of those guys who's one of the top guys on the local level?
Yeah, I think there's potentially still a chance. It's just gonna depend on, he seems like he's back now and motivated and wanting to compete and stay busy. So it's going to depend on that. It depends on how you kind of shape up to finish a year. You go out there and beat JJ Ambrose, fight again on Hex later in the year if they do another show or wherever or somewhere else, wherever you want to, and get another sort of fight with someone that's a decent, experienced opponent or potentially an international opponent, whatever. Get another win, another finish, kind of sets you up quite nicely. So. There's potential. Do I feel like we're going to see him fight in the UFC? I don't know, but potentially PFL, Bellator, something like that. I think one championship. All of those are still sort of readily available options that we could potentially see. Jump at an opportunity to have someone like Abel fight on their show.
Absolutely. There you go. So, we're going to get to a fan question before we wrap it up. Obviously, so Hex goes down. I think it's Melbourne Pavilion, isn't it, on Friday night? So, anyone in Melbourne, make sure you sort of get down there and catch the fights we just talked about. And of course, we'll be sort of recapping it all next week, and hopefully there'll be some fun stuff to talk about.
100%. It's going to be a sick show. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a multitasking event because Hex is going to be on. And I'll be at an event in Sydney, a sort of amateur event in Sydney that's going down. Showdown is taking place in Sydney. My teammate Mitch Harmison's in action. He just fought 2 weeks ago on Wollongong Wars, and he's backing it up with another quick fight locked in 2 weeks later, and he's fighting again. So, he's 3-0 in MMA as an amateur at the moment, 100% finish rate. He's going out there for a fourth time. So I'm going to be watching him fight, watching Hex, potentially watching Alaska Fighting Championship or something like that after that, So I'll be busy. I'll be watching all the MMA. Friday's going to be a busy one for me.
Absolutely. Is it all amateur card up there?
I believe so. I feel like I think they had a pro fight main event scheduled, which was going to feature Michael Stanoff, but his opponent got injured, I believe, so they got scrapped. I don't know if they've replaced that now with another pro fight or if they're just going to move one of the other fights up to the main event. But so that's obviously pretty shit. We hate when fights fall through, but yeah. Other than that, there's some decent amateur fights on the card. Couple of Australian IMAF representatives that are fighting on the card. So that's what we love to see. We want to see these amateurs sort of keep racking up the experience, and then continue to sort of, build the sport up at that sort of level.
Absolutely. And no Amina on that card. It's been like 2 weeks. She must have like itchy knuckles by now.
Man, she's getting around the gym, just getting on everyone's nerves because she just wants to fight. She's got all this pent up energy of just wanting to fight. But surprised that she's not fighting. She's she's itching to go again. So it's interesting to sort of see what's going to be next for her. I believe I think Mitch fights this Friday. Next Wednesday, they're going overseas on like a much deserved sort of break holiday or whatever, especially for her. And then when they come back, we might potentially see her jump back in for another couple of fights or potentially go pro or something like that. It's an exciting sort of position for her to be in.
Definitely. Well, we're going to get to this fan question anyway. This week's question comes from Luke Ramsey. He asks, I noticed a lot of ref stand-ups this weekend in the UFC. What's your thoughts on stand-ups?
Yeah, obviously this is a topic in MMA that, there's sort of the casual sort of people that watch the sport and then don't understand when they happen or when they don't happen. And then there's people like us that are sort of highly invested into the sport and watch it and stuff like that and go quite across it. And then there's times where you see them happen and you're like, what the fuck were you thinking? And then there's other times where you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Why aren't you standing these people up? And it's just a fine line. But I did notice that on the weekend too. I did, yeah. We had a few other people message me about it as well. A couple of people from different avenues, a couple of fighters, a couple of people that are just invested into watching the sport, a couple of people who ref in the sport. It was weird. It's a weird thing, sort of like, I think like at the moment with the refereeing sort of side of things, especially in the top level, like in the UFC and that, I've noticed a few blunders lately. And, I feel like it's almost, I don't know. It's a scenario at the moment where it seems like referees are trying to involve themselves in the fight more and more, as opposed to like a couple of years ago, it wasn't a sort of thing. But more recently, we've seen few referees like really try and insert themselves into the fight in some sort of way, shape, or form. And are stand-ups becoming a tool or a thing that they're using to do that? I don't know. But yeah, there was a few that happened on the weekend that were a bit weird. It's just kind of like where there seemed to be enough action happening that you didn't warrant a stand up. And then, there's some of the fights where you kind of look at and you go, a stand up was necessary. Like even in the Nunes Pena fight, if you're sort of watching that fight, when Amanda took her down in the third round, there was, I think at one stage I counted, there was like a good 30, 32 seconds where there wasn't much happening. Amanda was kind of just tied up and there wasn't much happening. And, that's potentially an opportunity where you can kind of go, okay, let's stand them up. Let's give them the opportunity to work again. But at the same time, do you want to be a referee that kind of makes that call and then you see the fighter that you've given that opportunity to get back to her feet sustain unnecessary damage she probably wouldn't have sustained when she in the position that she was in, where she was able to tie the person up and kind of do those things? Because let's be honest, on the feet, Amanda was just punching her fucking head in. So, a reset there might have just been a bad move. Yeah, but that's always a grey area. Stand-ups are a grey area. It's a weird position to be in because, people want to see action and they want to see crazy knockouts, and casual sort of fans of the sport just want to see people get their lights shut out and violence on the feet. And unless you're sort of really invested into watching the sport, it's hard to appreciate the stuff that happens on the ground. The exchanges that are sort of happening, the grappling exchanges, the scrambling, the ability for one fighter to control another fighter. It's one of those things that's part of the sport that across the board, from a regional level to the top level, whether there's fighters, fans, promoters, whatever, there's people it's kind of sort of split down the line in a sense where people are want to see fights get sort of reset and put back on the feet. And then there's other people that want to see it sort of continue because they have that understanding of that area. And I'm going to use my good buddy Alan Philpott as an example. It's actually turned out quite nicely. He actually, put something up on his social media that kind of touched on this as well, where he was talking about his upcoming fight with Diego and saying that, he's excited because Diego comes to fight and doesn't come to cuddle. And all I can say is, how dare someone mix up the martial arts in a mixed martial arts fight? How dare they? That should be fucking illegal. But that's kind of where it's at. You see that across the board. How many times in the top level have we seen people get taken down? Like Masvidal, great example, got taken down and just ragdolled in the first fight with Usman and was I'm going to get better at this whole wrestling thing, be able to keep the fight standing. It's going to be a different result. And then he got knocked the fuck out, so it's just one of those things. It's a part of the sport. It's a thing that needs to happen. The fight's going to hit the ground. Do you need a referee to be competent enough to be able to make that call and go, okay, this is a time where I need to stand this fight up. This is a time where I don't need to do that 100%. And that's why I feel like, all referees should train or have some sort of experience in the sport or understanding of that to be able to make those calls. But it's a weird one. It's a grey area, and I don't think there's ever going to be a clear-cut wrong or right kind of approach, because we can watch it at home, but that referee's probably got a different perspective and probably thought something was in a different position or was okay, more warranted for him to do that. But yeah, it's just a weird one. It's easy for me when I'm not, even when I'm in there and I've had a few weird things sort of happens with referees disengaging the action or resetting us or whatever. And I've thought to myself, what the fuck? How does that make sense? But then, there's been times where I've watched it back and gone, oh, okay, I can see it. I can see why you made that call. Fair enough. But yeah, it's just a weird thing. It's a weird thing in the heat of the moment.
Absolutely, and maybe we can put this one. We're hopefully going to have an official on as a future guest, so maybe we can put some of these sorts of questions to them. But you would hope that the referees would be educated enough that they sort of understand what they're looking at and they can tell when a fighter's advancing position and that sort of thing. But how long do you think that they should let it go? If the fighters are on the ground, one fighter's got holding full guard and just kind of just trying to stall it out. How long do you think? How long do you think they let it go before they should stand it up? It's difficult to put a time scale on it, but if we were to sort of quantify when a stand up should happen, how long do they let it go?
I think if you're on the ground and you're in a position like full guard or something like that where, and you're not sustaining, you're not dishing out damage or passing, trying to pass and improve your position, and you're kind of just stuck and not looking to, and if you're there for maybe 30, 35 seconds and you're not actively trying to improve your position or actively landing damaging shots or something like that, that seems like a pretty good time time frame to sort of use to sort of go, okay, nah, and then reset them. Because at the end of the day, if you're in a position like that and you're on top of someone and you're I don't care if the person postures up, lands one or two punches and then is down again and they're just kind of controlling the person on the ground. And then maybe a couple seconds go by and then they posture up and throw maybe one or two strikes and then do the same thing again. Am I going to go, oh, that person, they need to stand this fight up? No, that person's doing exactly what they're doing. If the referee's prompting you, asking you to work, and then you do work and then get control and you do work and then you control, that's warranted enough for it to sort of remain where it is. But if you're tied up on the bottom, from the person on the bottom, or you're just kind of not looking to improve your position or not looking to really damage, and you're just kind of laying and praying, which we've seen a couple of times. That's, even for me, someone who appreciates that side of the sport and likes to sort of utilize that and capitalize on that. I think that's warranted of getting stood up. I feel like, think about it, in a fight, even in a fight with 5-minute rounds, 30 seconds is a decent amount of time. If for 30 seconds, you're not doing too much or not looking to improve your position, I think the referee should then step in and go, all right, let's get back up.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess refereeing, it's an occupation that's just so heavily scrutinized these days, like particularly in the UFC, if a fight sort of, kind of slows to a snail's pace for even 30 seconds, then the other crowd starts booing, or if you get something sort of slightly wrong, you got Dana White crowing about it in the press conferences, or Dan Hardy jumping up and yelling at you on the way out of the cage. There's all sorts of madness that goes on these days. So there is a lot of pressure on you on referees. So when you sort of talk about referees kind of inserting themselves into the fight, I don't know. I feel like some of these things would possibly play on your mind if you're a referee. I don't know if it's so much them sort of inserting themselves into the conversation, trying to assert themselves on the fight. I think it's it's just trying to get things, maybe trying not to get things wrong at times. They get so heavily criticised. Like Dan Marigliotta on the weekend. Obviously the Derek Lewis stoppage, it looked pretty early. Looked like Derek Lewis was okay. But if he let that go and Derek Lewis got fucking flatlined, then, it'd be a different conversation. So it's a fine line between sort of the right and the wrong call for referees. And I feel like sometimes maybe they possibly overthink it. And that's when these sorts of, stand-ups, maybe unwarranted stand-ups and stuff might happen.
Yeah, I feel like it's a pressure sort of position to be in. I don't envy them. My job's a lot more simple. I just got to go in there and beat the fuck out of people. Theirs is a lot more difficult than mine. Yeah, I think for the most part, you're right. They're just trying to deal with the whole process and trying to absorb everything that's happening, and not, the crowds and doing their thing. The fighters are obviously doing their thing. You got to listen to the corners, and you're worried about what Dana's going to say or what the commission's going to say, because obviously after all the events we've spoken about this before, you got to sit there and justify the decisions that you made throughout the night. No matter if you're a judge or an official or whatever, and go, okay, well, this is why I did this. This is why I played out like this for me. So you've got to factor all that in. Before, when I sort of said, about referees trying to insert themselves into fights, there's one guy specifically that I'm sort of referring to, and that's Mark Goddard. That dude needs to shut his fucking mouth, man. That guy is just constantly trying to involve himself in parts of the fight that he doesn't need to. Constantly saying stupid shit. I can't even count how many times recently he'll be like, people will be fighting and then something will happen and he's like, oh, it's a fight, guys. Yeah, thanks, man. We didn't know. We're just in here punching on.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
He just, he constantly says stupid shit like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's just one of those guys that just likes the sound of his own voice. Much like myself, I will say. But, he's not in a position where we need him to do that.
Absolutely, but speaking of loving the sound of our own voices, you'll be hearing plenty more of our voices next week in episode 25. We'll be recapping Hex 23, recapping Rob Wilkinson's fight in PFL, Shannon Ross's fight in Dana White's Contender Series, which of course goes down next Wednesday morning Australian time. Obviously there'll be all sorts of a whole lot more fun and frivolity that goes on around that. But until then, send us through your fan questions. The details are below if you're watching on YouTube, at Dan Meehan MMA on Twitter, or at Lockjaw MMA on Instagram. Make sure you follow the Instagram page at Fight Talk Down Under, and like and subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Fight News Australia, and iHeartRadio. All right, Lockjaw, what are you going to take us off with?
I guess probably that. Yeah. What do we have to leave the people with? Simple, guys. I've said this a few times. I'll say it again. Get out there and support your regional, local shows. These people that you could potentially see fight now at a regional level could potentially be the future stars that are representing Australia, in these bigger promotions. And, if you had the opportunity to sort of, I guess, I don't know, if you got to see fucking Queen perform live before they were stupid famous, you'd be pretty happy about that. So, Yeah, take these opportunities, support your local promotions, especially if you're in places like Melbourne and that, who've had a pretty shocking run recently with MMA shows. Like we've got Hex going down this week and stuff like that. Get out there, pack the event out, pack the fucking the sort of venue out, and get these sort of fighters some good support, because that's what we want to see, and that's what it's going to allow it to sort of continue. So just do that, support your local MMA.
I gotta watch it, you never know what might stop you. Here I